Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of our Q&A, where we sit around in these orange chairs and we answer all of your questions that you have for us. We're excited to do this again. I love doing this every single week.
This is fun. I love this. Yes,
when
this is fun.
we miss those weeks, when we have those times where we have to either not do this or there's a little bit of a break, I always feel like, man, we're missing something.
Yeah.
I love being able to just have this open dialogue, to answer the questions, to hopefully just bring people to a better place of understanding, either in their walk with Jesus Christ or understanding of who we are as a church. And just create those opportunities for that open dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. Questions give us the opportunity to bring greater clarity. So it's beautiful to be able to get those questions from people to know the areas that we really need to dive into, just to try to make things maybe clearer or more understandable. Love the opportunity.
And we're definitely going to do that today. I'm excited about it. Before we jump into that, though, this is Easter week. Easter is coming. I do want to invite you guys all to come to one of our 4 Easter services. We have
4 services?
I know. We have some amazing things planned. It's absolutely going to be a fantastic Easter. But our 4 Easter times, just as a reminder, we'll start at 8 a.m., 9:10, 10:20, and 11:30. We are going to be live streaming the 9:10 service, and that is also the service that will be ASL interpreted. So if you require any of those services, those will be provided at our 9:10 service just for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Dave, you ready for Easter? I mean, it seems like it came up quick.
My goodness, seriously. I'm in a good place in being ready for Easter. I can't say that I'm ready, but in the next couple of days, we'll be good to go.
Yeah, I'm ready too. I think I agree. I think we're in a really good place. I think we're excited to open our doors and bring people in and have this big celebration for what Easter represents. We're so excited about it.
And in this particular case, not only is there the actual service, which we've been planning and praying for a long time, that it just really touches everybody's heart in a powerful and profound way. But you've had a special project going on in turning our multi-purpose room into this amazing additional seating capacity area, complete with large screen TVs, its own sound, live worship that'll be going on in that room, acoustically treating the room. It has been a massive project, and I'll have to admit, it looks amazing.
Yeah, let's talk about that just real fast. I know that wasn't really on our agenda for today, but I think it's important because as we're in the middle of the launch of our capital campaign to aggressively attack the size of our building, and to know that we have limitations, we address that. We know. If you came here for Christmas this past year, you know that we are tight on space, especially at large events like Christmas and Easter. I think this past Christmas we had just about 1,300 people that came to our Christmas Eve services. How do we accommodate that for our Easter services?
And that was across 6 services, and 3 days we had that many people.
Right.
Here we're going to be doing everything in one morning.
We are. Yeah.
It's going to be, it'll be interesting.
So just so everybody is aware, like, we have had so much dialogue and so much conversation and so many brainstorming ideas to say, how do we do this? How do we best not just fit the number of people? It's not just about butts and seats.
That's correct.
It's about how do we serve people the best?
Exactly right.
And so we thought, well, should we do a Saturday service? Should we do 2 Saturday services? Should we do 6 services on Sunday morning? You know, how do we fit that in? How far do we stretch into the afternoon? Are we serving our volunteers at that point?
Yes.
So we have brainstormed so many ideas, and one of the pinch points we know that we face is just the sheer number of people we can fit into the auditorium. So how do we relieve that pressure?
Right.
So what we've decided is the multi-purpose room. Initially, the idea was, well, we just need to create some overflow space. And as we mulled through that and as we talked about it, we're like, well, that really sucks.
Yeah.
If you get shoved into an overflow space and you're just watching it on TV, everything that's happening, that's a really bad experience.
It is. Imagine somebody going to a concert and then going, oh, by the way, there's no room in the concert, but we have this little room with the TV where you could sit and watch everything. It's like, what a massively disappointed experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we make that experience the best that we
Yes.
can? Which is why in that space we're running it like almost like it's its own separate
thing.
church.
That's right. That's right.
There's going to be live worship. There's going to be special things just for that room. We're very, very excited at what this allows us to do as we move forward, as we continue to grow, and as we look forward to the completion of the next phase.
Absolutely. And of course, when we decided in order to give our people and our guests the best possible experience on Sunday, and the multi-purpose room became the answer, it gave rise to another immediate challenge is, but we use that for kids too. We're going to have a ton of kids. So that every solution means, but here's another problem. So we're actually renting a large tent with sides and heaters, so no matter what the weather is, we're going to be protected. It'll be warm enough in there as an activity area for our kids in lieu of having the multi-purpose room.
Right.
So we pulled out all the stops to make sure that no matter what age group shows up here on Sunday, from the littlest kid all the way through the oldest adults, we can provide a quality experience for those people and help present the good news of a living Jesus who can save and give life.
Absolutely. And we've rented tents like that before in the past.
Yeah.
We've done this exact thing with our kids. So we're very confident that that's going to help relieve some of that tension. But we're very excited at the possibility of just bringing the gospel to people, as many people as possible.
That's right.
And how do we do that with the best intentions and with the best experience that we can offer?
So we've done everything we can to make sure that there's room, as we've been saying through this campaign, in our hearts and in our building for anybody that's seeking Jesus to be able to come. And we've done everything we could conceive of to make that happen. And now we're just asking God not only to draw people here, but for God to do a beautiful work in every person who attends.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to lead us really good into the first of our questions. And first off, before we do that, I kind of want to preface this with, I love the questions this week. And I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but here's how I'm kind of, some of the questions may feel very aggressive or direct or I don't want to say accusatory, but I want to say like they're questioning maybe some of our decisions or our intent.
Yes, there's a definite point of view behind the questions.
And here's what I want to do. I want to encourage you continue to ask these questions. We don't want to shy away from them, but we want to hear the reality of where you are and give us the opportunity to hopefully walk you through some of the decision making that we've made as we try to lead this church the best that we know how. And we're gonna stumble at times. We're gonna make some mistakes. We're going to try to do the best that we can. We're always gonna try to come back to what we believe God's direction and His will is for us. But I love these questions because I feel like we're finally breaking through a little bit of a barrier with our people who watch these Q&As with us.
Yeah.
That they're ready to be like, I'm gonna push hard. I'm gonna push and I'm gonna challenge, and we need some answers.
Yeah.
So I love these questions. Keep them coming. Good job, people.
By the way, I agree with that completely. These are beautiful opportunities. My church experience growing up and even early as an adult was that you simply didn't ask the hard questions. And in that kind of environment, there's always levels of suspicion, mistrust. It's where disgruntlement can grow. It's what causes people to just, drift away and leave. We don't want that. We want to have as open a dialogue as we can possibly have. We may not have an answer, or our answer may be, you know what, that's a really good point. We kind of missed the boat on that one. But it does give us the opportunity also to explain our reasons behind why we do what we do so we can at least understand each other better. So we love it. We don't look at any question and like, What? How dare you ask a question? That never crosses our mind. Sometimes we get questions that's like, man, I never would have thought of that. Or it would be like, I thought I made that clear. Apparently I didn't. I need to back up and try another way to do it. So it's a beautiful opportunity for us. It's why we appreciate the question so much.
For sure. Well, let's jump into it. We know this is Easter week. Easter is coming up on Sunday. It is the Holy Week, as we call it. So here's the first question. How come we don't do anything for Holy Week? Do we not acknowledge Palm Sunday, Maunday Thursday, or Good Friday? It seems like connection goes from 0 to Easter.
First of all, that last line is hilarious. From 0 to Easter. And I have to admit, when I first read that question, it stung a little bit because I thought, does 0 describe our normal church services? Gosh, I hope not. You know, it's interesting. We, kind of a glimpse behind the scene, we as a staff and volunteers spend an enormous amount of time and energy planning, praying, executing, training, scheduling, and then afterwards evaluating how can we do better. It's like we pour everything we have into every church service that we've got.
Sure.
And I know that's not what this person was trying to say at all. But I just do want to let people know we firmly believe that any Sunday could be somebody's last best chance to find Christ.
Right.
And we are not going to take that lightly. We don't have any throwaway Sundays. We don't have any as just a regular Sunday, sort of thing. We give our best to everything we do. But we all acknowledge you get to this time of year, this week, Holy Week, as it's often called, it's like the stakes get higher. I mean, there's something special about it. So we acknowledge that completely as well. So when it's like, do we acknowledge these days? First of all, maybe we should understand what those days are, because not everybody may know.
Yeah, let's walk through them.
Palm Sunday is the Sunday before Easter, and it is the day that Jesus rode into the donkey, or rode in on a donkey into Jerusalem, and the people shouted Hosanna, and one of the things they did is put palm branches down in front of them. Hence it being known as Palm Sunday, because it's the day he kind of rode into Jerusalem and was hailed as the Messiah by the very people who about 5 days later were shouting, crucify him. But
right.
So it's commemorating that. Maunday Thursday is actually a recognition or celebration of the last Passover meal that Jesus ate with his disciples, which would have been on Thursday evening in all likelihood. We won't get into all of the nuanced debates about exact which days things happen, but on that one, it's when Jesus washed the disciples' feet. It's when he gave them the new commandment to, love each other as he have loved them. And so that's what Maunday Thursday is about. Good Friday is commemorating the day Jesus was crucified and died. And then, of course, that culminates in Easter, which is the day he rose from the dead. So that's what those events are. Sunday, Thursday, Friday, the following Sunday, entering Jerusalem, last Passover meal, day he died, and the day he rose again from the dead. So do we acknowledge them? It all depends on what you mean by acknowledge, to be really honest. Do we believe in them? And do we teach about them? Absolutely, we do. Do we make mention of those under normal circumstances? The answer is absolutely we do. Do we construct special services around those events and do that annually? The answer is no, we don't. Now, we've done Palm Sunday on a number of occasions. We've even brought the kiddos in with the palm branches and had them wave that. And we've had messages about, Jesus entering as king and what that meant. So, but it's not an annual, like, this is what we do every single year kind of thing. And to be honest with you, it's like, when this question came, it was almost like I went, we really didn't do anything for Palm Sunday this year. And one of the reasons that we really didn't give it the mention we might normally give it is because of a logistical thing that happened. A week ago Sunday, we were going to have our outdoor prayer time for the Imagine More campaign.
Right.
But because of weather and logistics, we couldn't do it. We moved it to the following week. And honestly, it kind of crowded out both our planning and our thinking, so we didn't give it much of a mention. And that's on me. All right, that's on us. This question also caused me to once again be reminded that there are a number of people who come from a liturgical church background, which sounds like a relic. Liturgical church, what's that? In other words, they follow a liturgy or a routine of what they do in church, and it's the same every year. So in a liturgical calendar, which is practiced by the Catholic Church, but a number of other non-Catholic churches as well, in a liturgical, you've got roughly half of the year where everything is scripted. You've got Advent leading up to Christmas.
Yep.
You've got Christmas. You've got Epiphany, which is actually a celebration of the Magi showing up at Jesus, to visit Jesus and give him his gifts. Then you have what they call a little sliver of ordinary time. That's their word for it. It's ordinary time. Then you have Lent. Mm-hmm. Then you have Holy Week, the events that we see on the screen, plus Easter. Then you have what they call Eastertide, which is 40 days after Easter until a feast known in the Bible as Pentecost. It's when the Holy Spirit came and the church was born. Then the other half of the year, you have, again, what they call ordinary time. But even in ordinary time, it cycles through a very specific calendar of, we read this passage from the Old Testament, this passage from the Psalm, this passage from the Gospel, and everything we talk about focuses on those. And that follows a 3-year cycle. So I know that's a lot of information. But the point is, everything is predictable. You do the same thing every single year. It's just the way it unfolds. If you come from a liturgical church background, it is normal to expect this is just what we do, because it's all you've ever known. This is what we do this time of year. And when it's not done, it feels weird. Actually, it can feel wrong. It's like, what? Wait a minute. Palm Sunday's a big deal. We did nothing. No Good Friday service? It just feels wrong because it's what we've come to associate with the way Christians express themselves at certain times of the year. Mm-hmm. So I was reminded in this question that there's a lot of people that are influenced by the way, and that, there's nothing wrong with this at all, as I'll address in a minute. But it's like, yeah, when it doesn't happen, it feels wrong.
What would you say? I totally agree with everything you're saying, and we know that Connections is kind of a melting pot of a lot of people. I know we have people who were Catholic in their upbringing, or that's their history. We have a lot of people who are Lutherans, or Presbyterians, or Baptists, or whatever it is. We're a really weird grouping of people who have found each other. How would you, if you were to assess us as a church, how would you break that? Would you say there's a high percentage of people who may feel this way? Or do you think that's a small percentage? If you had to guess.
If I had to guess, and it would be an educated guess from my interactions with, a number of people, it would be a sizable minority is the way I'd put it. I find a number of people that I've talked to who come from a more liturgical background that while they find what we do different, they're attracted to it because it doesn't have that predictable, sometimes they'll use the word ritual experience where you just know what to expect and everything else. Others are more, they're more, I'll use the word troubled, but what I mean by that is it just feels weird to them and they're not sure exactly how they feel about it. We human beings have not a tendency is the wrong word. We human beings are driven to find security in forms and structures. Yeah. And when forms and structures are altered, it shakes us and we feel insecure. Political forms and structures, religious forms and structures, family forms and structures, it doesn't matter what area it's in. So when someone comes somewhere like here, and those forms and structures aren't in place, it's a little unsettling. And some go like, well, I like some things, but that's not for me, and they move on. And others like, well, there's enough here to hold me, but it's still a little unsettling. Right. So I would say it's a sizable minority of people. There isn't, let me put it this way. There are some people who really get into special days. And there are other people who don't. And what I find fascinating is the Bible actually talks about this. In the 15th chapter of the book of Romans, the Apostle Paul is being led by the Spirit of Jesus to give instruction on what to do in a church when some people are like, these are special days. And other people are like, nah, every day is a holy good day, right? And here's what the Spirit of God says in Romans 15 and verse 5. He says, some people observe special days and other people look at every day alike. Everybody should just be convinced in their own mind. That's it. So you need to make up your mind what works for you. And then it concludes by saying in verse 13, so let's just stop passing judgment on one another. Yeah. So what's going to happen is some people are going to go, man, it's Palm Sunday. It's Good Friday. And if you are driven to make that a special day, that's a good thing. Yeah. And others are like, you know what? Every day is God's day. Every Sunday is just as important. Well, you know what? That's a good thing because every day belongs to God. And it's just like, so all we say is, let's just not judge each other. Don't look at people who go, we need to be doing for Palm Sunday and go, what's wrong with you? It's just another Sunday. We celebrate the resurrection every Sunday, which in a sense we do. And also not to judge the people who go like, well, you know what? I think every day is alike. But obviously Paul knew there would be a sensitivity there, and so we need to be sensitive about it as well. Yeah. And this question forced me, it actually forced me to do a little checking. Here's what I did. I checked the websites of the large churches in America that are like us. They're like independent, evangelical, Bible-believing churches, right? And here's what I find. The majority of them did not do something special for Palm Sunday. The minority did, the majority didn't. Then I said, I'm going to look at the larger churches in our area. The majority did do something on Palm Sunday centered around it, and the minority didn't. So there were both in both categories. But here's what it did. It reminded me that we live in an area where there are more people with liturgical church background. Right. Which means I need to be more sensitive to that when I'm leading us, because we do it together in planning the calendar. So that was like we're not Los Angeles or Atlanta or Chicago or New York. We're like Kalamazoo, who's going. And it's a different subculture that I need to be more sensitive to. So sure. I appreciated what this brought me back to in remembering the people that it is that we serve. So, so yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there. I also think that it's just really important that we recognize that it's okay to have a different feel about it, about the different days. Let's be sensitive to it. A couple of really super practical matters that might help. One, because I get asked this question, definitely more than the others, and that is, why don't we do anything for Good Friday? And the honest answer to that question is, we don't have the horsepower. And I only shared the tip of the iceberg in our kind of preamble to our discussion today, but the enormous amount of energy that is spent on Easter Sunday is such that adding another service to do would mean that service isn't going to be as good as we could put out there. Easter would be diminished. And so we haven't done it really from a practical standpoint. The day may come in the future that we'll be able to do that. Because I'm not against doing it at all.
Yeah.
But
to be clear, you're talking about a limited number of staff that has only enough bandwidth to do so much.
Absolutely. And
because right now we're even down a staff member where we should be.
Exactly.
We have 4 full-time staff members.
Exactly.
And we're stretched about as far as we can and taking on load of all of the youth ministry and everything else.
Which means everybody shifts responsibility to pick up slack. And if I might just take this opportunity to let everybody in TV world know, the staff that I watch what everybody on staff does, and their work capacity is huge. And it's not like they come in and they put in a 40-hour week. Normally they work more than 40 hours. You get into something like an Easter, and we're talking about 50, 60, 70 hours for multiple weeks in getting ready. They put their heart and soul into it. I could not be prouder of a group of people than the staff that you have serving you as your pastoral
What are you
team.
talking about, Dave? We only work 1 day a week, right?
And not even a whole day. So it's really a bandwidth issue. It really is. It's not adverse, or we don't want to do it. We'd love to be able to do it. It's really cool. God willing, in the future, we'll be able to do it. But right now, it's just logistically, it isn't so. And I also said, okay, I haven't done this for a long time. I need to hop in here and I need to look at the events of Holy Week and go, when did they become a thing? And so because this is my inquisitive mind and I'm driven to do research and try to find out, because I get driven for answers. And so Easter was like, essentially the week after Jesus resurrected. Easter became a celebration because believers didn't meet on Saturday anymore. They started meeting on Sunday, the first day of the week, rather than the last day of the week, Saturday, the Sabbath day, but that they were used to worshiping. Immediately everything changed because of the resurrection. It was in the early 2nd century, which means the early 100s, or about one generation if you count 40 years-ish as a typical generation, that the church on the Mediterranean rim, where all the early churches started, began taking one Sunday and focusing on the resurrection. Because every Sunday was a remember, but as time went by, they almost wanted to make sure, look, the reason we do this is because Jesus was, so we want to give a special recognition. So that's when the first Easter services, if you will, took place. Palm Sunday, the first mention of Palm Sunday services is in the 8th century. And it took place in a church in northern Italy. And the Catholic Church then took that and brought that into their liturgy, which we learned is their rotation of what they do. So Palm Sunday dates back to about the 8th century. Maunday Thursday is a little tougher one.
I'm going to tell you, when I remember hearing that when I was a kid, and I thought they were saying Maunday Thursday.
Yes.
I was
me
like, that
too.
doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
Hey, can you give us what is Maunday?
Yeah. Okay. The word Maunday is actually taken from Latin, and it's the Latin word that means mandate. And it was taken from the mandate Jesus gave during the Last Supper to love one another as he loved them. So that's the weird connection. Jesus made the statement at that occasion. It happened during the last Passover. That's what we're commemorating. And it became the mandate, or in Latin, the Maunday. And that's how it got its name.
We should just start calling communion Maunday. Maunday communion.
We should. Everybody go, what in the world are you doing? And there were some special fasting observances on Thursday in the 4th and 5th century. But it wasn't until hundreds of years later that got incorporated into the Catholic liturgy as well. And then when it comes to Good Friday, the first mention of Good Friday actually also comes from the 7th century. But what's fascinating about that is the phrase Good Friday was never uttered until the year 1290. And the Good Friday that we celebrate, it's the Maunday Thursday that we celebrate, wasn't instituted until 1956.
Interesting.
So it was hundreds, thousands of years after the resurrection of Jesus that these other things began to be celebrated, whereas Easter was right from the get-go. So I just think that's historically interesting that Easter was always the biggest deal. If Jesus doesn't come back from the dead,
right,
none of this matters. He was a fraud.
Right.
And that was always the big deal. But as time went by, other elements of that last week began to be celebrated as a memorial of things that happened. And again, that's a good thing. You don't have to do it. It's okay to do it. So let's all get along, I think is what Paul's counsel would actually be.
Yeah. Well, good. That's a lot of great information. Obviously, there's going to be times in the future where, man, we're going to lean into some of these things.
Yep.
But as the responsibility of the church, what we have to do is point people to the resurrection.
Yes.
And so for Easter, we know that even culturally, we know some people will just come to church Christmas and Easter.
That's
and
right.
so we have to plan big for that influx of numbers, and hopefully present the gospel in a way that is impacting to their life, that they break free from those 2 times a year and start coming a little bit more regularly, and start making their a relationship with Jesus part of their life.
Yeah, that is absolutely the goal.
Yep. That's it. Good. All right. Well, let's jump into this next one. This one
that took a while.
I know, but I think it was all good. It was all good. Actually, all these are good, and definitely things we need to talk about. This next one is pointed at our capital campaign.
Yeah,
and really the tension that we know is out there, that we know people feel, and we know the stereotype that the American church sometimes have when it comes to raising funds.
Yes,
let's jump into this.
We do know the stereotype.
All right, it says, I love our church. Great. First off, thank you.
Yes,
we love our church too.
Thank you very
We really
much.
do. I love our church, but lately I feel like every lecture lately is just setting up for us to be asked for money. Quite honestly, it's making me feel more and more uncomfortable for us. While I think the project is great and obviously needed, at what point are we going to get back to a, quote, regular, unquote, service and not feel pressured to donate?
Yeah. Thank you for loving our church. Thank you for seeing the obvious need. So I can tell you're like on the team. You're like, yes, that encourages me greatly. So I love that. Now, again, you know what the sting was for me in this one when I first read the question? It was the word lecture.
You know what though? I knew you were going to point that out, and I knew you were going to take offense to that. And you know what? If you were to, I get it, because especially if you went through all of your education through school, and if you went to college, like, man, you sat down and you listened to somebody talk for
I
half
listened to
hour or
lectures.
longer.
Yes.
That's a lecture.
Yes.
And sometimes, Dave, I don't know, maybe you're lecturing us from that pulpit.
And that's what I thought. I said, oh, please, dear God, don't let me come across as a lecturer. It's not it's the connotation of the word, right? And I don't think that's what this person meant.
No.
I don't think that at all. But I had to laugh when I saw the word, because I thought, no.
Because the heart of the word, like what we do, what we're trying to present from the stage, we don't come at it from a place of like, I'm lecturing someone, or it's just an information dump.
Yes. A lecture is normally understood as an expert standing up and dumping information on people that he or she thinks they ought to know. It's not how we look at teaching and preaching at Connections. We look at it as a fellow learner who is sharing their best understanding of the teachings and heart of Jesus, so that we can all grow together. And we try to make it relatable and real, and not come across as like authoritarian. And again, I don't believe that that's the point that the person is getting at in the word. But it is a good opportunity to go, here's how we try to come across. And we want it to be engaging. We want to provoke thought. We want to stir people's emotions. And the last thing we want is an information dump.
Yeah.
Right? It's the last thing that we want. We sometimes say, look, there's no test at the end, except there is a test at the end of our lives when we stand before Jesus and we're judged. And I really, really, really want everyone in our church to hear, good job, faithful servant, when that day comes. I live for that.
But let's get past
the word.
Get past the word, because I don't think that was the intent. It might have just been a vocabulary choice. Let's get to the heart of what's being said here, because I know that there is a stereotype out there that churches just want your money.
Yeah, there is, Steve. We made a very strategic choice to not do a stewardship series when we launched the campaign. This is what is normally done, by the way. If a church is going to launch a campaign and they've got this special project, whatever, they'll cast vision for it. Here's why we need it done. But then the teaching will be on stewardship. God has entrusted things to us. We need to give back to Him. This is being a good steward. We need to be generous, all that kind of stuff. Which, by the way, is all 100% true. That would be normal. We decided we did not want to go that way. I felt a compulsion that I believe was from God's Spirit to do a series of messages on what it actually took for us to live remarkable lives and to be a remarkable church. When I look out at people on any given Sunday, I see people that are teeming with potential. I see people that I know they want their lives to mean something. They want to make a difference in their families, with their friends, in their corner of the world. And I want to bring that out. Matter of fact, that's one of my jobs as a pastor, is to equip them to bring that out. And I just felt compelled to talk about, here's what it's going to take for us to achieve our dreams as individuals and our dreams as a church, to really live impactful lives. It's going to take our blood, sweat, and tears, and we got to be willing to pay that price. That was the drive behind the series. I didn't want to do a stewardship thing because I didn't want to make it look like all I'm doing is greasing the skids for the big ask for money at the end. I didn't say anything about money in any of these messages. In fact, I think if I'd have walked off the stage after the message, no one would have any idea we were in a capital campaign. Zero, because there was nothing in the message.
During just the message part,
During
not the tag part.
That's exactly right.
Correct.
It is only because after the message, I would vision cast and then try to give some of the specifics behind the Imagine More campaign. I wanted it to be separate from what the messages were. Several things that might be helpful here. One is why did we do this for a whole month? And it comes down to some basic communication realities. Reality number one, if you don't talk about it in church, more people will never hear about it than will. They just don't.
Right.
If it doesn't actually, in other words, if we said we're going to have a banquet, or we said we're going to have just a digital campaign, or we're going to send out emails, the majority of people, and this is like statistically demonstrated, the majority of people in the church will never hear about it because they're not going to go to the banquet and they don't listen to they don't read the email or whatever.
Right.
Second, if you do it in church, you have to do it at least 4 times for everybody to hear it at least one time. It's the attendance realities of the culture in which we live. If you don't do it 4 Sundays in a row, there are going to be some people that are like, they only come once a month,
right,
but they still consider themselves regular attenders, and we're so glad that they do. But the average American who labels themselves as a regular attender of church goes to church 1 time a month. Now, we've got a lot more that do it. We got people that are there every single Sunday. They heard it 4 times.
Which is my guess for this person.
Absolutely. Because they look like they're in.
Yeah.
So they probably did hear it one of those times. But if we don't repeat it that often, there are some people who will never hear. What has also been proven is that if it's not repeated, people are unclear on the what are we doing and the why. And they need to hear it to bring that degree of clarity to what we're doing. And we want to be clear on the what and the why. So that's why we bring it up. And again, if you don't repeat it, it is demonstrated that people deem it to be not important because it doesn't get repeated. So all those factors went into why we did it for an entire month. We tagged it onto the last 10 minutes of the service. It ended up being a 5th Sunday only because of, as I mentioned before, our plan to go outside on the last one. We had to postpone it a week. So that made it 5 Sundays in a row. But that's why the repetition. But I get why the repetition can make someone go, wait a minute, why? Why are we feeling this? So I get it and I understand it. And again, this is such a challenge for me as a communicator. I want to be as good as I can. I re-listen to every message I give, almost every message I give. And I don't do it because I like the sound of my own voice. I actually don't. I do it because I need to evaluate, how am I doing? How could I have said that better? I want to get better at what I do. And I tried so hard to state with clarity, there's no pressure to give. Every week I said, I don't want anybody to feel pressure to give it. Nobody will ever. I stated every week, nobody's going to be guilt-tripped into doing anything. I said every single week that we simply want you to pray and ask God to lay on your heart what to do and do whatever God tells you to do. And then the last time I even made the statement, if you feel hesitant, don't give. It's okay. You can wait until maybe times are crazier and you feel better about what you're doing. So I tried to communicate that as best I could, that we don't pressure people into giving connections. But I get when they hear about the campaign and the ask for 5 Sundays in a row, how that could kind of that impression could be left.
Yeah,
with people.
sometimes the nonverbal communication or that impression can sometimes maybe even be contradictory to what the verbal communication is, right?
Yes,
It's
it
like,
can.
I'm not going to pressure you to give, but
Well, and isn't that something? Because we're not going to pressure everybody to give. But do I believe that this is a great opportunity for us to sacrifice and do something remarkable? Yep. I believe that with all of my being. But it's an opportunity. So I want to vision cast it. This matters. And so juggling that, this is a great opportunity. This really matters. We do remarkable with, but you don't have to, is like, it's an art, man. And it's not always easy to keep the bowling pin and the chainsaw in here. You're trying to juggle them both, right? It's difficult. And I will say this. I do not know, because I'd love to have a conversation with the person who asked the question. I do not know the backstory that this person has from which all thoughts and questions emerge.
Sure.
That's true for all of us. So what I'm going to say is not directed at this person because I don't know, but it's a general observation that I have found in 40 years of doing what I do, is that when people say they feel like they're pressured to give, it usually comes from one of two things. Now, again, I'm saying usually, not always, but it usually comes from one of two things. One is experience. You mentioned early on. Some people, man, they've been a part of churches that have just been like, the hammer is always down. There's an offering taken every week, and before that offering, there is some sort of mini sermon, no matter what you want to call it, on the need to give. I get it. And there are people who have been part of campaigns where suddenly the campaign becomes the focus of the church rather than the mission that God gave the church. And so they hear about all the time. And when you've been through that, there's a super sensitivity.
Right.
That, frankly, I understand. I would have the exact same thing. So I get it. So then when you do hear, and since we built this building, this is the first time we've been going through this, let's raise funds to be able to do something. But it's like, it's like a salt in a wound for a person that had that experience. So I get it. I understand it. I feel for you. I wish you didn't have experience, but it happens. My counsel would be that wound does need to heal. And in order for it to heal, it does require deciding, it in part requires deciding, I'm going to trust again. And remember that every gift that we give to God through the church or through a person, to an organization, but it's given to God. And God will never let you down. God will never, He's the only one who will never let you down and never disappoint you. And so at some point, we need to trust Him, because if we don't learn to trust again, we simply become bitter. And bitterness is a cancer that will destroy your spirit from the inside out. So at some point, we do need to heal again. But I get the experience making it really hard, and you're super sensitive. It's just part of the process. The other reason that I have discerned over all of the decades is that when people say that they feel pressure to give, it's from conviction. Jesus said that money is God's number one rival for our hearts. Matthew chapter 6, right? Very famous statement where Jesus said, nobody serves two masters. You love one, they hate the other. You're loyal to one, you despise the other. And then goes, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about, he goes, you can't serve God and money. You're going to need to sacrifice one for the other. And what sometimes happens is that when we teach about giving, because we do, it's in the Bible a lot. When we present opportunity to give, there are times the Spirit of God will bring conviction to people that they need to do it, or that they need to bring their finances under the control of Scripture and the Word of God. But that conviction gets labeled as, you're pressuring me. When the pressure is really not coming from the outside in, it's coming from the inside out.
Gotcha.
Now, again, I am not saying that's what's happening here, but I just have noticed experience and conviction seem to be the two most common drivers of the I feel pressured when they're actually not being pressured to give. And I would simply say, if anybody feels that, this is what I do when I sometimes struggle with giving gifts or helping somebody in need, or whatever the case may be. If I find myself wrestling with it, I go, okay, wait a minute. Have I genuinely surrendered my financial life to God? And by the way, it's not something you do one time and you're done. I'm always finding new circumstances in which I need to surrender my finances to God. So I go through this. This is my point. I go through this because I know that there are times that the Spirit of God will simply convict me or lead me. And when I wrestle with that, it's a me thing and wrestling with God.
Yeah.
So I would say it can come usually from one of those two experiences, and they're both handled differently. But it's good to evaluate: is my experience doing this, or am I just really feeling a conviction because my finances aren't fully yielded to God? There are good questions to ask. They may not be the reasons, but they often are. So they're good questions to ask ourselves.
Good. And just kind of wrap up the last really question that comes out of this is move us forward. Up until this point, we've talked about it for the last 5 weeks.
Right.
Where are we going from here, and what kind of updates for this capital campaign should we expect? Is this a weekly thing? Is this a monthly thing? How do we continue to update our congregation where we are? And how do we keep this vision still in the forefront without making it a...
Yes. And again, there's the jungle that we'll be going through, right? Our plan is to give a monthly update. Now, that monthly update will go out through a variety of channels. It'll go out through the midweek email. It'll go out perhaps through social media. It will go out through a mention in church on Sunday. So it would not be surprising if once a month in the church you heard an update of where we're at. It won't be a big, long deal, but you'll hear an update. You'll hear a brief synopsis of the vision and the opportunity to participate. This is because we're always getting new people at Connections. Mm-hmm. And the new people don't know what's going on. They don't have the history. And so we want to make them aware of what our future looks like and where we're going so that they can prayerfully decide if they want to contribute and help move that direction. So that's what you can plan on. And during that once a month that we're planning on just giving a brief updated vision cast, we're also going to take time to head anybody that wants to, not everybody. But if you want to, we're going to head back out those same doors that we did last Sunday, and we're going to have prayer in the spot for God to provide so that we can actually build this tool to enable us to reach and impact more people.
Right.
And so we'll have that, but that'll be strictly voluntary. Here's an opportunity. If you want to have there, great. If not, you can scoot on your way. So that's the basic game plan right now for how we're planning on handling things moving forward.
So this person should expect us to get back to regular services pretty much immediately, right?
Pretty much immediately. Like this Sunday will be, this Sunday's Easter, right? But yeah, it'll get back to regular services. But I also have to chuckle. I have to chuckle because... Okay, here's a statement that we've said, not original with us. We're a church where we want you to come as you are. Mm-hmm. Don't stay that way.
Yeah.
Because this is about life change under the direction and power of Jesus, who wants us to be everything we were designed to be. And that process of life change means that sometimes we need to be comforted and encouraged and directed, and sometimes it means we need to be challenged and convicted and called to step it up. The church ought to be a safe place for a dangerous message. And so if by regular you mean that, then yes, that's what we always plan on it being. There will always be the challenge factor that we scheduled in, because frankly, Jesus challenges us to more than we are right now.
Right.
Still challenges me. I think he's challenging us all.
Absolutely. Well, let's quickly just jump into this last one. I know we've been going for a long time, but I want to make sure that we touch on this last one too, because it also has to do with our capital campaign. It might be a place of where people are at, and maybe it's just a logistical answer that we can give to say, how do we get involved? But is there a rigid time frame? Can I still get involved? Here's the question.
Okay.
I want to help with this project, the capital campaign project, but I'm one of those people waiting to pledge.
Yeah.
Is there a time limit on making a pledge? And how can I know when I should start giving?
Yeah, wow, what great questions. And again, like every other person to ask a question, I can tell you're on board, man. You're on the team. You're like, I want to go, and that encourages me so greatly. Okay, so is there a time limit on making a pledge? And the answer is no. Well, when the building is built, I guess you know. But no, there's not a time limit. At any point, you can decide, I want to make a pledge and hop on. So no, there is no limit there at all. You can do that whenever. The tough question is, how can I know when I should start giving?
Well, let me back up real quick, because I think we've put a date on the pledge. Like we've said some things.
Point. Yeah.
And this person may be not at the place where they're like, I'm just not sure yet of how much or where it is, but we've put kind of an arbitrary date, even though you said there really isn't a date. Talk us through why we've said, man, we would love to have pledges come in pretty much immediately.
Yeah, right. And we said, like, if you could do it before Easter, because we'd like to, and of course we started saying that before the financial markets went crazy, and all of a sudden the spirit of heaviness started understandably growing up in people. So the reason we want to do that is we wanted to be able to give a really powerful early read on where is our heart at, where is our capability at in terms of we want to make this happen. And our hope was that it would be a substantial amount that was pledged to the 3-year campaign, because that would just be this shot in the arm, this encouragement in going forward. We now know, given circumstances, it probably will not be what we had hoped for, though it's actually been pretty good so far. But the reason we gave that date is that's what we were hoping to be able to do. Now circumstances have caused a number of people to be like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not sure if I want to do it right now. So we threw out the before Easter thing, but by no means does that mean if you don't do it by Easter, the window's closed.
And talk us through the difference between just the pledge and the actual giving, the donation part.
Good point. The pledge is basically letting us know, for planning purposes, letting us know, here's how much I am planning to give over the next 3 years. So the sum total. You're given once a month, you're given once a year, you're given one lump, doesn't matter how you're doing it, right? But that just says, this is what I believe God wants me to do, so this is what I'm going to try to do. That's the pledge. Then the donation is when you follow through on the pledge. And by the way, we also understand some people they have the rug pulled out from underneath them, and suddenly they can't do what they thought they could do. Okay, that happens.
So the pledge is not a contract.
No, it is not a contract.
It's not something that that we're holding people's feet to the fire on.
That is exactly right. It is saying, this is what I'm going to try to do. I know some people that give more than they pledged. I know other people that lost a job and can't give what they pledged. in either case, it's like, we get it. It's an expression of intent. That's what the pledge is. And that's what we're looking to kind of get a read on. And then the donation is when you actually begin either the monthly or the annual, or however you choose to do it. You can set it up on our church app or website, Imagine More campaign, and you can set up or make a recurring donation or give a one-time donation, however you ever choose to do it. But the pledge is over the 3 years, and it's saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm gonna shoot for. So, thank you for the chance to clarify that. How can I know when I should start giving? Well, I would say only you can. Here is the one counsel I would give to kind of help bring a degree of clarity to knowing when to pull the trigger. I would say when your faith outweighs your fear, start giving. Now, that is not an indictment on this or any person's faith. So let me be really clear about this. Faith is a positive response of our heart to what God has told us to do. That's all faith is. Faith is going, do this, trust this, believe this, whatever the case may be. We go, yes, that's faith. I will do what you say. It's a yes, Lord attitude. But the faith response of the heart can be put into two different categories, I think, Steve. Category number one is when it comes to the written word of God. In other words, what did Jesus actually teach us? It's right there in written form, black and white, recorded in history and true. Faith in that is like, whatever you say. Because I don't have to wonder if you're telling me I should be generous, I should give to the poor, I should be faithful to my spouse, I should be honest, I should love my neighbor. We don't have to wonder whether Jesus said, do these things, right? So faith is going, I will absolutely and utterly comply to what you have said, Jesus, in your word. There's not a judgment call involved. Because the most rational thing a human can do is what God says. If God is real and who he says he is, it's the most rational thing in the world, because somehow it will always work to his glory, but my eternal good and the good of other people if I will do what he says. That's category one. But the second category is the subjective category. It's when faith is a matter of responding to a prompting of God's Spirit in our hearts. It's not written down in black and white. Thou shalt give $1,000 to imagine. You will find a verse like that. It's like, I feel it's subjective in nature. It is an interpretation of what we believe the Spirit of God is putting in our hearts to do. Whenever there's a prompting, there's a battle. Battle's not the right word. There's a weighing of two realities. One reality is reason, and the other reality is response. I will do what God says. Because we're making a judgment call in response to what we interpret that God is doing inside of us or leading us to do, we always ask the question, wait a minute, is this reasonable? Is this wise? Against or along with, this is what I'm thinking God is doing. And when it comes to these sorts of things, it's like, if our reason outweighs our desire to respond with what we think might be going on, we're going to be hesitant to give. It's not a matter of, I don't want to obey God. It's just that circumstances cause our reason to give us doubt or hesitancy or fear that's stronger than our faith, our wanting to respond and just go ahead and do. It's okay for that tension to exist. When the scale tips to where faith is stronger than the reason or the hesitancy, pull the trigger. I don't think, for the most part, for most people, it will ever be like 100% pull the trigger with no hesitancy at all. There will always be some hesitancy because you're making a sacrifice.
Right.
But when that faith outweighs the hesitancy, make the move. Just make the move and do it, and God will bless you for doing it. So keep praying, keep thinking, keep your eye on your circumstances and how things are going. But the moment that faith tips beyond, the fear, the hesitancy because of what reason is telling you, the moment it tips the other way, go ahead and give.
Yeah. And just to kind of reiterate what we've said in the past, for anybody who may be wondering, like, can I just start giving now? And the answer is yes. Any money that comes in specific for the Imagine More campaign is earmarked specifically for that.
Exactly.
It only goes towards
That's
that
exactly
fund.
right.
It's not going into our general fund.
Nope.
Everything is being set aside for this project. And then as we know this is a 3-year campaign, but within those 3 years, there's things that have to happen to get us to the point where we have a building, right?
Exactly.
The next step is we're going to get mechanical blueprints done, and we've got to have funds for that, and then we've got to start ordering steel, and then there's things along the way. So if you're at the place where you're like, well, yeah, we're 3 years out, I can just kind of wait to give. Well, you can. But if you're starting to give now, those are going directly into that fund
to it. It's exactly
that
right.
has a purpose immediately.
That is exactly right. Exactly right. And it is only when funds are available that we will do the preliminary work necessary to get the building built. I mean, it's not like we're going to be breaking ground this year. Well, maybe we are, but something amazing would have to happen for that to be the case. But it's more like we need to get the architectural prints, the site planning and all that firmed up and approved. That has to happen before building goes on. Things need to be ordered sometimes 6, 9, a year ahead of time. When we're financially able, we can begin to do those sorts of things.
Right.
Those are the things that we play by ear, but every dollar earmarked for Imagine More goes for Imagine More.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, we're very excited about this project. I think the general buzz is that everybody I've talked to, they see the need, they're excited for it. And this last 4 or 5 weeks, this is the rally, right?
Yeah,
This is
it?
our presenting the vision, and that now it will be moving forward, just kind of maintaining that and bringing new people in and
Yes.
continuing to cast that vision as we go.
Indeed.
But it doesn't stop the mission that we're on.
No.
And that mission comes first, regardless of it. And I love how you continue to say the building is great, but it's just a tool.
It's a tool.
It's a tool that will hopefully allow us to spread the good news of the gospel of Jesus
Yes.
to a bigger audience in this area.
Yes, absolutely. And if it's not used for that, I hope the building never gets built. Because that's
Yeah.
what it's for.
Right.
That's its entire extent. It is a tool for mission. That's all.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you guys are on this mission with us. We couldn't do any of this without you. We are so grateful that you continue to come and support us in what we're doing here to help lead you guys in this crazy endeavor that we call this walk with Christ and this journey that we're on. And we love that you guys continue to ask us questions. And I'm going to reiterate what I said at the beginning. We love it when you guys push hard against us. Ask the tough questions and continue this dialogue. This is how we grow. This is how we're challenged. This is how we reflect and say, maybe we need to make some changes. Maybe we need to be more sensitive. This is how we grow too. So continue to ask the questions. You can do that on our website, my3c.org. You just click on the Ask a Question. And all the questions that come in are anonymous. We don't know who asks them. That's why you don't see any names attached to any of these questions, because we don't know who asks them. But hopefully what that does is it breaks down the barrier or the fear of pushing against people that might seem like, should I be asking that to them? Yeah. Because I think there is that. I know historically I've been to churches where it's like, man, that pastor seems untouchable. It seems unapproachable. It seems like I can't ask the question. We would love for you to ask those questions. So please do that. once again, we're going to invite you to Easter. Join us Easter this Sunday. Our service times again are at 8 o'clock, 9:10, 10:20, and 11:30. And hopefully we are busting at the seams, but we have enough space for everybody with all the accommodations that we're making.
Absolutely.
So, Dave, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
I hope you have a great next couple of days prepping yourself, your heart, and finalizing all the plans for Easter. And we hope to see all of you guys there, because here at Connections, we love you, but more importantly, God loves you, and we'll see you next time.